Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Interceptor Research's Ask Me Anything style. So, for probably a few weeks here, I'm just going to be talking about, well, anything. Hence, Ask Me Anything. Feel free to leave a comment below with more questions. But there's going to be a little less emphasis on research and a little more discussion of, my view of games. And this time, as we gain a few final levels to beat the final boss in Kingdom Hearts tomorrow, given that this is a re-release, I guess, technically, with a few new scenes and HD graphics, we're going to answer a question about, what do I feel about graphics and re-releases. And I think the most important thing when it comes to graphics, I was kind of thinking about how to phrase this last night. And to me, it makes less of a difference if the graphics are good and more of a difference if the graphics are bad, if that makes sense. Good graphics can be good in a lot of ways. We have these really impressive game engines right now that are publishing very lifelike games, and they look pretty, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, even in this cartoonish Kingdom Hearts, they you can definitely tell that, yes, the HD graphics are more clear than the regular graphics, and it looks nice, sure. Is it necessary? Not at all. I do not enjoy this game more than the original version. I enjoy them really equally. It doesn't make a difference at all. Even the cutscenes, which, sure, add something, and I have liked them, it's not changing my overall view of the game. And for me, the same can be said of a lot of classic games. I really love the Super Nintendo. The Super Nintendo is my favorite system, I would say. And sure, the graphics near the end were really impressive when you got to Donkey Kong and Super Mario RPG in particular. But I love the original Final Fantasy graphics. I love Final Fantasy VI in its, squashed glory. I love Secret of Mana in its original graphics. Oh, that's not who I wanted to cast here on. I don't think good graphics are necessary by any means. I don't think they make or break a game, but bad graphics can. So I think that's really the point, or the line in the sand, I guess. If you're playing a game and it's so dark you can't tell what's going on, or it's the facial expressions get creepy, just because the graphics are not rendered well, then that can be distracting from a game experience. And, admittedly, it can work to the game's benefit. It can add a little bit of character, I guess. An amusement factor that's unintentional, but can improve the enjoyment of a game, although definitely, again, not improving the game itself. I'm trying to kind of think of an example of a game where graphics ruined the game. I'm not actually sure. The N64, I feel like it had some growing pains in terms of graphics. If you remember, you know, the classic GoldenEye, for example, you know, the characters are kind of blocky, and that was a big thing, like in the PlayStation 1, Nintendo 64 era. The graphics really were figuring themselves out. Final Fantasy VII, you know, just the characters could be awkward, to say the least. But, you know, the two games that just came to mind, the graphics did not ruin them. GoldenEye is really a classic, and of course Final Fantasy VII is one of the more beloved entries in the series, by popular opinion. So, I guess I don't play enough games to have anything immediately come to mind where the graphics just ruined a game, to the point where I didn't want to play it. So it's pretty hard, I guess. If the gameplay is good, if the characters are interesting, you can deal with blocky graphics. You know? It becomes an amusing thing instead of a bad thing. So yeah, I am not part of that crowd that sees the importance of always better and better graphics. Yes, I will admit, getting out of the PlayStation 1, Nintendo 64, growing pains, awkward era, I do like. You know, I'm glad that we've moved into something a little bit more realistic, because, I mean, it doesn't look great. But, you know, to me, by the time they got to Final Fantasy VIII, yeah, the graphics weren't great in that game either. I think if any game I would like to see a visual redone of, it's actually 8. I think 7 and 8 suffered the most graphically when it comes to Final Fantasy games. Final Fantasy IX had a really nice style that I think it was late enough in the PlayStation 1 era that they had things figured out. But 7 and 8, I think getting a redone visual is alright for those two. I think it's justifiable. But then when you look at the remakes of the other games, I'm not sure it's necessary. One of the big issues that's coming up is there's the re-release of Secret of Mana that's coming out, and they rendered it in 3D graphics, and I don't think I like it. I mean, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna play it, but I don't know why they decided to redo the graphics. The Super Nintendo actually had a really nice style, and the graphics were, you know, really solid Super Nintendo graphics. And the 3D, it just pushes it too much into cartoony. And the same can be said with other HD remakes, actually. So in Kingdom Hearts, it works. I mean, this is Disney characters along with Square characters. It can look a little childish. But when playing through the Final Fantasy X-2 game, the remaster for PS4, you know, they put a lot of care in kind of redoing the graphics, but I don't, you know, when they do some of the close-ups of the main cast talking and their eyes are really big and the shape of their face, I think by trying to make it more smooth, they just made it more cartoony, and it actually does kind of distract me. I preferred the original 10-2 graphics. Maybe that's because I don't remember them that well. Maybe if I did a side-by-side, I would be like, oh, actually no, this is better. But from where I'm sitting, I don't really like what I see a ton. So I don't think the remaster, re-graphic train is really where it's at. I don't think that's where the focus should be. Re-releases in general are kind of a double-edged sword, because when it comes to this, the video game companies have us in a vice. Now, I still have... I think the only console that I got rid of for breaking was actually my GameCube. It still functioned, but in all the moves across country, something happened that messed up the controller game interface. So I'm sure I could have fixed it, but the Wii actually has backwards compatibility. Thank you, Nintendo Wii producers. So there was no reason really to keep the GameCube. But I did give my PlayStation 2 to friends of mine so that they could play the PS1 and PS2 Final Fantasy games. And so now with just the PS3 and the PS4, I am buying a lot of remakes that I probably would not buy if I still had my PS2, shall we say. So if I still had my PS2, which still works, it's still fine, and if I didn't have a YouTube channel, because obviously filming from the PS4 is extremely easy, which it is not with the PS2, I would not have bought the 10 and 10-2 remake. I would not have bought the 12 remake. I would not have bought the Kingdom Hearts remakes. Like, it's not... The quote-unquote updated graphics are not worth it to me. Unfortunately, with the increasing lack of backwards compatibility, if you get rid of your old systems, then you have to buy the remasters, and that's just the way that it goes. So if any video game makers are out there listening to this random YouTube channel, I definitely suggest when you do re-releases, you offer the choice between playing the original and playing the remastered, especially for things like Final Fantasy VI, where I don't think anybody likes the improved quote-unquote graphics more. I don't think that's a thing people like. I will say the edition for the Final Fantasy XII remake, which I do like, you know, the graphics, the music, I don't really notice, I'll be honest. I mean, I notice, but as I was saying at the beginning of the episode, the original graphics were not what was making or breaking the game for me. Yes, it's prettier now. No, I don't really care. But I do really like being able to listen to the original Japanese audio. And I think that's something that more and more games are doing, letting you choose the audio. And to me, that's great. I'm a linguist. I really like languages. I really want to learn Japanese. I think it's such a beautiful language. And so being able to listen to a game with the original character value is, to me, really great. Especially, and this is no offense to English voice actors, but I think Japan has a longer tradition of kind of taking voice acting seriously. And, you know, this could just be my, you know, high school Japanophile self-talking. But I cared much more about Japanese seiyuu than I did about the dub voice actors. The dub voice actors were generally not very good at the time. And Japanese translations generally not very good, which I think was, you know, which is more important. But dubs would change plot points. So unless you were listening to it in the Japanese, who knew what you were taking away from, you know, a show? So the same will be true for video games. And I do think it's changing. I do think there's more of a culture of professional voice acting today and valuing that. Still probably not as high as it is in the Japanese world, but you know, it's what was it that I wanted to say? I mean, I just think Japanese voice actors do a better job, but American and, well, we'll just say Western, because I guess sometimes I don't know what nationality the voice actors are. But English translations are getting there. They're usually okay now. My rule of thumb back in high school when I watched a lot of anime was if I watched it in the dub first, then I could tolerate it, but if I watched it in the Japanese first, I could not go back and listen to the English. It just changes your experience too much. Although, like, I go back and listen to the original Sailor Moon, I'm like, how did I ever listen to this in English? This is horrendous. So sorry for all the people I just offended. But this is my opinion. I prefer listening to the Japanese voices. I prefer listening and interacting with things in their original language as much as possible. That's why I studied Latin and Greek. I mean, it's what I do. So that's kind of my take on graphics and remakes in general. So, you know, feel free to give comments on your view or leave more questions below or on my Twitter with Ask Me Anything, and I'll handle them next week. For now, have a lovely Sunday. I hope you're enjoying the end of summer, the beginning of fall, whatever it is for you. Where I live, it can't quite make up its mind. So, but it is a good day. So take care, everybody. Bye.